The links to John channel, become a member here, or check out the Rumble or the Odyssey. Rumble is popping right now. So Hollywood seems to attract the absolute worst people on earth, and it just kind of like, oh yeah, that's just Hollywood. I'm like, well, isn't anyone going to do anything about it, or is it just going to, oh, yeah, Weinstein, yeah, just a total degenerate. Oh, it's weird that like nobody worked with the FBI or the Screen Actors Guild to figure some way out of this. No, just he was making money, so we left him alone. That's that's pretty dark. So what happened? First of all, everyone deserves due process. The guy's been accused, not convicted. I don't want to forget that. So the weird thing is, this Justin guy, Roiland, of course, is in the news, and he's got an interesting history. But then once you start looking at this thing, the other guy's name pops up, Dan Harmon, who's also a filthy degenerate. He has for a couple of reasons. He had the one thing where he did a skit where he's on a couch with a doll. It's something you see once and then you're just done with that person. And then later he did something where he was coming on to his coworker, and it's like, who knows what that means? So people, I don't know. The thing with the doll was enough for me. If you make a video, could you do a funny video with an adult puppet or with an anthropomorphic animal? Yeah, for sure. If you can make it funny, but not with a kid doll. That's a hard no. Everyone would look at you and like, oh hey, I have this skit and it's with a kid's doll. No. That's think of another skit, friend. I'm going to stop you on this, and you're going to thank me for stopping you. The weird thing is, when that stuff came out, the left wing media tried to deflect away from this degeneracy by saying, well, yes, Dan Harmon was doing his thing with a baby doll, but the fact was the right wing is upset by it. That's the real issue, not that Hollywood seems to have an Epstein problem. They said it has something to do with that boomer alphabet group. Let's call it P because it's close enough to the other letter. YouTube is funny about that kind of thing. It's something to do with the idea that P and the people who follow that are against hurting kids. And the left wing apparently supports hurting kids because that's the hill the globalist media want to die on, that the far right wants to protect children and the left wants them on stage dancing around. What a way to frame an argument for your opponent, right? And I know nobody on the left is listening to this, but it's such a losing position to hold on to all this kind of stuff, like the extreme of the extreme left. That's the one thing about the left is they don't disavow the far left, where the right will disavow anyone who's a millimeter to the right of them, or someone who says something politically incorrect about one of the sacred cows, and they immediately lose their mind and just disavow them. And you look at them, you go, so the left has the far left together as a political voting bloc, but the right and the far right are not together as political voting blocks. So you're just guaranteed to lose. So the moderate right is really kind of like the con ops right. Anyway, the T stuff is not selling well to the moderates, and the kids trans stuff is definitely not selling well. But it seems to be a foundational dogma of the satanic left because it's a sacrifice of the just the most innocent to Moloch. I mean, giving a child to the demon of the underworld is just about as evil as it can get. I mean, a spiritual sacrifice at least. So people on the right viewed Dan Harmon as evil because he was helping to normalize the abuse of children. He was doing it as a joke 10 years ago, and so was James Gunn with his tweets that are still archived out there. And look where we are now. I mean, God, dear Lord, look around. Puts on the They Live glasses. It's like it's a nightmare with or without them. You got kids on stage, and men are stuffing dollars into their skirts. Yes, that's because the boys are dancing around while they're dressed as girls. Welcome to, I guess, the dancing boys of America. Really, can't really make fun of that anywhere else when it's happening in America right now. So extrapolate a few years in the future. What do you think the future holds for the kids? Like, I can't say it on YouTube, but everyone knows where this is going. It's just too obvious. You'd have to be asleep not to see this stuff. Anyway, so that was Dan Harmon who made a mistake. Fine, it's possible to do a bad comedy sketch. The best you could say is, if it were for me, I'd be like, oh, substance abuse problem, blown out of the mind, and just go to rehab and learn your lesson. Like, externalize it to something that can be treated. Anyway, when you look at Hollywood, you could easily overlook a few minor incidents, but what are you supposed to think when there are just too many coincidences? Wherein Hollywood seems to attract and protect these filthy parasites, eventually you just kind of conclude that Hollywood is a machine that pushes this degeneracy to shift the window further and further to the left. So this guy, Justin, gets accused of being a violent weirdo and gets fired from everything. Which honestly, that to me is not such a good societal position where just to be accused is enough to get you fired. I can understand them saying that they're going to take like a temporary leave of absence, but to fire somebody on an accusation is not a good thing. But nowadays, there's the court, and then there's the court of public opinions, and people are releasing all these social media posts that I don't think I can show here about direct messages that he allegedly had with people. Are they real? Well, it takes an investigation to determine that. If it's real, then it would nuke any shows that he was involved with, even stuff in the past, because, separate the art from the artist. I don't care how much you like those shows. You read those DMs, and if it comes out that they're real, you don't, you're going to, you just don't, you wouldn't even want those, I don't know, DVDs in your house anymore. It's just too gross. It's also cringy, like the Weinstein phone records of him begging for sex with actresses. And like, you felt bad for everyone in the room when that stuff came out. I mean, in a way, you almost, like, you felt bad you had to listen to it because Weinstein was so pathetic. Anyway, so everyone he's associated with now is absolutely running for the hills because his direct messages are just pure James Gunn, Weinstein levels of perversion. If the DMs are real, then the dude is over. The DMs are way worse than the actual battery and false imprisonment charges that he's currently dealing with, because at least that's between two adults, which, you can kind of understand. Two adults are slapping each other around or something. It's more equal, at least. I mean, I'm not trying to justify it, but I'm saying it's different than with people who are potentially underage. Two adults, they get in arguments, they break up, they go their own ways, they both learn a lesson, get, I don't know, anger management or something. But the alleged DMs, well, there's absolutely no coming back from that. And it's weird that, like, I was gonna say, it's weird that you're a public figure making these DMs. It's weird that any adult would. The guy was like 40 and making these DMs to people. It's weird anyone would make the DMs, unless at any age, in any position. It's like real juvenile. And the thing is, I know Hollywood is deeply twisted. Like, in the inner workings of Hollywood, these people get in this echo chamber where it's like with James Gunn, where he thought he was getting positive reinforcement for his tweets about just the most horrific stuff. And it's not that he's serious or anything, or I don't know, but it's like it's shifting the window to the left. But like, nobody is taking him aside and saying, "Oh yeah, it's making you look weird to talk about this kind of stuff." Because if you're in the industry, James Gunn is probably more powerful than you, and if you're above him, I don't know. It's like, when you get in that position of nobody's able to say, "Oh, cool it," you probably want to cool it on this kid stuff. Like, before it blows up, go back and delete all that stuff and just drop it in the future. It's like somebody's doing you a favor by telling you that. Like, James Gunn probably is not, probably just not wired right. Like, he so desperately needs attention, he had to make these kind of tweets that, like, people were laughing at. But it's like, yeah, they're not really. I mean, they're laughing at them because they know you're powerful in Hollywood. But this guy's DMs, if they're, they, like, everything is an allegation right now. You got to have you got to check receipts. Just because someone's a Hollywood scumbag doesn't mean, like, every accusation is accurate. But like, they're weird. They're just not something a 40-year-old would be tweeting to a 20-year-old, or even someone younger. So the thing is, I know Hollywood is deeply sick, but the audience is not on board with messages to kids or even adults in some cases that are, they're just graphically sexual for no point. And that's funny is, one of the things I think that triggered people is he was using the F slur, bundles of sticks, which if you're over a certain age, those slurs and a bunch of other slurs are just no big deal. People use that stuff all the time, as long as you're not in the public sphere. But to kids today, they're so politically correct that they see any of these kind of slurs and they just like virtue signal like crazy. And then when they get a little older, they're gonna look back and, like, they're not gonna care anymore either, because, like, you just stop caring once you hit a certain age. And kids also have a weird thing today where they treat adult women like kids, which is kind of a different story. It's like they're kind of obvious about the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. They infantilize women is what they do, and you're like, are they adults or not? Like, at what point do they become adults? And, like, oh, it's a very young woman, so she's 22, and some, I don't know. This came up with something else, but they did that to people who were, maybe it was in Comicsgate, where they're talking about, like, women in their 20s as if they were like children. It's like, they're women in their 20s. They, like, have kids by now. They've started families. It's weird when they like take their agency away when they need to prove a point. Anyway, Hollywood's just a cesspool, a wicked hive of scum and villainy. it's like every time you look at it and you peel off a layer of Hollywood, it just gets worse and worse to the point where, oh, there's really, it's all just sick. I mean, it all just, you look at all of it and go like, oh, well, they ruined this cartoon series for a bunch of people who, when this stuff comes out, you look at it like, oh, there's no way you couldn't, you read his DMs, you couldn't go back and watch anything this guy's been associated with. There's just too, you can't separate the art from the artist. Like, you hear the guy's voice and he's doing these voiceovers. There's no freaking way. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.